break world record on India's Independence Day. All this and much more on Inside South Asia.
On Wings this week, trying traditional Rajasthani food in Ranthambhore's tiger country. We cover a visa temple in India's Telangana state, where thousands of people come to pray for a successful application. Our country in focus for the week is Croatia. And we also soar over Berlin in Europe's highest swing. Only on WION, World is One.
Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gamkeev. Let's get started. Our top focus tonight is on the growing outrage over the Kolkata hospital horror. It is a case that has left the country in shock. Protesters are out on the streets demanding justice after a 31-year-old trainee doctor in Kolkata was brutally raped and murdered at a government-run hospital. Here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show. Will Iran respond with an assassination in Israel? We tell you what's brewing. We also tell you how extreme weather is leading to a rise in child marriages in Pakistan. Who is Jasween Sangha, who is among the 5 people charged in connection with the Friends star Matthew Perry's death? All this and more coming up tonight. Anger over the gruesome rape and murder of a 31-year-old doctor in Kolkata in India is showing no signs of dying down. A week ago, the young doctor was found dead at her workplace. The matter is being investigated by the CBI, that's the Central Bureau of Investigation. But protests continue. Today, hundreds of protesters have been arrested in Kolkata. The Doctors Association has called for a work stoppage tomorrow, urging more than 1 million colleagues nationwide to stop work for a day. The nationwide shutdown of services tomorrow will be India's biggest such strike in recent times.
We're standing here at Nirman Bhavan in New Delhi, where doctors have been protesting since the afternoon. They demand answers from the health ministry, from authorities. They want accountability for the heinous crime that was committed. They're standing hand in hand in solidarity in the wake of the brutal rape and murder of the 31-year-old resident doctor in Kolkata. The air is filled with grief and anger. This incident has clearly sparked a nationwide outcry, and the doctors won't step down until justice is served. The message is loud and clear. The fight for justice, for safety of women must continue until it is won. With camera person Joy Bhattacharya, this is Nikita Singh for WION World is One.
The condition in which the body was found leaves no room for doubt that it was a gruesome act. And what's shocking is that it took place within the supposedly safe confines of a government-run hospital. It has led to massive outrage, with doctors staging protests across India demanding justice. Also, stricter punishment for the culprit. In the days since the case came to light, more and more disturbing details have emerged. Initially, the parents of the doctor were reportedly told that she died by suicide. The question is, were they not paying attention to the state in which the body was found when they told the parents that? Would the scene of the crime not indicate that this was not a case of suicide? So then, was there a cover-up? Also, were there attempts to avoid responsibility for the lapses that actually allowed such a crime to take place? The father of the victim has also revealed that he was offered compensation but refused to accept it, saying that he only wants justice for his daughter. The question is, can financial compensation bring back his daughter? Can money bring back his daughter? It cannot. Shouldn't the focus be on nabbing the culprit? Shouldn't the authorities work towards making the hospital safer? According to the staff at the hospital, the victim had settled down for a short nap on a carpet after working for nearly 20 hours when the assault took place. Doctors at the Kolkata hospital said that they don't feel safe anymore. They say that the circumstances highlight the vulnerability of medics left without proper protection and facilities. That's what they are saying. On the streets with posters, protesting doctors say they are scared for their security. They say they are unconvinced that such a heinous crime will not recur. They are demanding immediate action towards their safety. You see, doctors in India have long complained of being overworked and underpaid. They say that not enough is being done to curb violence that is leveled at them by people who are angry over the medical care, perhaps. For doctors, the working conditions, the workload, also harassment at the workplace are the sad reality. Of course, the state of the government hospitals is also a problem. They are overcrowded. The doctors have to work with multiple challenges.
Even the doctors on duty for the night and morning shifts are not feeling safe. I got a call from one of the juniors on night duty saying she was scared, asking me what to do. Even if no cases of rape happened yesterday, who is it to guarantee it will not happen today?
Tougher sentences were introduced to the criminal justice system after the 2012 gang rape of a 23-year-old student. It had sparked similar protests and outrage. But campaigners say little has changed since. It's not like there aren't enough tough laws, it's that they have failed to deter the tide of violence against women. And this is why doctors are out on the streets. The emotions are different this time, is what R.V. Ashokan, the president of the Indian Medical Association, has said, describing the current protest. Speaking with news agency Reuters, Ashokan said that women from majority of the profession in the country, time and again, have asked for safety. Amid the outrage, the Indian Health Ministry has issued guidelines setting a 6-hour deadline for the heads of state-run hospitals and medical colleges to report incidents of violence against healthcare workers. Late on Thursday, in fact, the IMA called on practicing doctors to shut down all services except emergency departments for 24 hours from Saturday morning. As emotions run high, Bollywood actors, celebrities, politicians have expressed their anger and shock.
Our demand foremost will be that we want justice for the victim, and this is just one victim, but all of us know that there are so many victims like her who go unnamed, whose story we never hear.
The rape and murder of the doctor in Kolkata reveals a sad and uncomfortable truth. The truth about how levels of sexual violence exist despite legal reforms and promised crackdowns. And the numbers are high. The authorities have ramped up penalties, including a minimum sentence of 10 years with a possible extension to life. There is also the death penalty if the victim is younger than 12. Other legal reforms have included widening the definition of rape and setting up fast-tracking courts. But conviction rates for rape widely ranging between 27% to 28%. Will Iran, Hezbollah execute an assassination of a high-ranking Israeli figure? Are the ongoing ceasefire talks in Gaza just a charade, a distraction? Is the truth more ominous than we think? Reports emerging from Israel have painted a chilling picture. On Thursday, senior security officials warned members of Israel's security cabinet of a possible Iranian and Hezbollah plot to assassinate top Israeli figures. According to these officials, Hezbollah and Iran might not choose the traditional path of missile and drone strikes. Instead, they could opt for something far more calculated, more personal. A direct hit on high-ranking officials in the Israel Defense Forces, the Shin Bet, Mossad, or lawmakers and politicians. And such a move would be a retaliation for the assassinations of Hezbollah commander Fuad Shukr in Beirut and the Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. But the question remains, why now? Earlier this week, remember, multiple reports suggested that the US was bracing for an imminent Iranian attack on Israel. Could this be the strike they anticipated? For over 4 decades, Iran has avoided targeting major foreign officials, focusing instead on dissenters within its borders or Kurdish figures. But could we be witnessing a strategic shift fueled by Hezbollah's influence? Could a high-ranking Israeli official actually be on the hit list? History suggests that this might not be as far-fetched as it seems. According to experts, traditionally, Iran has favored a restrained, tit-for-tat approach rather than outright escalation. Take, for instance, the events of early this year. In April, an Israeli airstrike on Iran's consulate in Syria killed 16 people, including members of Iran's Revolutionary Guards. 2 weeks later, Iran launched a barrage of drones and missiles towards Israel. Though most of these were intercepted, the attack demonstrated Iran's capability and, crucially, its willingness to retaliate enough to appease its public without actually triggering a full-blown war. But the assassination of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh on Iranian soil cannot be brushed aside. Experts have said that this was a significant blow to Iran's sovereignty, and in response, the typical tit-for-tat strategy might just evolve into something far more dangerous. A targeted assassination of a high-ranking Israeli official could serve to even the scales, but it could also ignite a regional conflict with catastrophic consequences. If Iran decides to strike back in this manner, the repercussions may not be contained within the borders of Israel and Iran. Tehran's threats, when they involve destruction, are taken very seriously by the global community, which waits in fearful anticipation of the chaos that could follow. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, remember, had vowed severe punishment for the attack in Tehran. And Iran is not just another regional player. It's a power capable of rallying proxies from Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, Iraq at a moment's notice. Hezbollah is armed with precision rockets and drones, boasting an arsenal that some experts estimate at 100,000 rockets. In the year 2021, Hezbollah leader Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah claimed that the group had 100,000 fighters, many of whom are battle-hardened from their involvement in Syria. And if you want to gauge Hezbollah's might, just look at the video that we are about to show you.
وباتت المقاومة تملك من الصواريخ الدقيقة وباتت المقاومة تملك من الصواريخ الدقيقة.
According to experts, the US, Israel, and their allies will not stand idly by, adding that Israel and the US are likely to be prepared for a significant response if Hezbollah and Iran decide to strike. In fact, the US Navy's recent deployment of warships and a submarine to the region could be an indication that Washington is bracing for the absolute worst. Israel Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has also made it abundantly clear that Israel is watching Beirut and Tehran very closely. And this vigilance raises another pressing question. What are we to make of the ongoing ceasefire talks in Doha? Hamas, notably, is absent from the meeting. It is reportedly being mediated by Qatari and Egyptian officials. There are also reports suggesting that Hamas might join the talks next week if they see merit in the ceasefire plan. Some experts believe that any retaliatory attack by Iran and Hezbollah is unlikely during these talks, but even if a ceasefire is reached, there is no guarantee that it will actually prevent Iran and Hezbollah from responding. The situation as such remains perilously unpredictable. In the midst of these developments, we are left with more questions than answers. The future of West Asia is shrouded in uncertainty, and the stakes have never been higher. Could an assassination be the spark that sets off a regional war? Is the current calm before the storm, or are we witnessing the early stages of a broader conflict with catastrophic consequences? One thing is clear, the delicate balance in the region could tip at any moment with consequences that would be felt far beyond the borders of Israel and Iran. And as we sit on the edge of our seats, we can only wonder what will happen next. And given those tensions, Israel itself is not making things any better. As per reports, dozens of Israeli settlers launched an attack on the Palestinian village of Jit, located in West Bank, setting fire to homes and vehicles. The incident reportedly took place on Thursday evening. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, at least one Palestinian man who was in his early 20s lost his life in the violence. Another individual suffered critical injuries with wounds to the chest. Reports indicate that the settlers, some of them masked, descended on Jit with rocks and Molotov cocktails. Footage of the attack has surfaced on social media, showing houses and vehicles engulfed in flames with thick plumes of smoke rising above the village. The scenes have sparked outrage and concern internationally. The Israeli Defense Forces confirmed that they have received reports of this violent assault and stated that they are currently investigating. The IDF claims that their forces were deployed to the village within minutes of receiving the reports, and they fired warning shots into the air to disperse the attackers. Subsequently, they removed the settlers from the area. Israeli political leaders have also condemned the attack. Prime Minister Netanyahu's office issued a statement asserting that those responsible for, quote-unquote, the criminal act would be apprehended and prosecuted. The Israeli president echoed that sentiment, expressing concern over the impact of such violence on Israel's international reputation, especially during a particularly sensitive period. He described the attackers as an extreme minority, quote-unquote, who tarnished the image of law-abiding settlers. One Israeli national has reportedly been detained in connection with the violence. The IDF, along with Israel's security agency Shin Bet and the Israeli police, have launched a joint investigation into the incident. The US has weighed in on the incident as well, condemning the actions of the settlers as unacceptable. Palestinians, remember, have long accused Israeli security forces of turning a blind eye to such attacks, allowing violent settlers, they say, to target their villages with impunity. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has documented over 1,000 settler attacks against Palestinians since the 7th of October. These attacks have led to significant human and material losses, with at least 1,390 people, including 660 children, reportedly displaced. Lethal violence has often accompanied these assaults, resulting in 107 incidents of fatalities and injuries among Palestinians. Let's now shift our attention to Pakistan. There has been an increase in child marriages in the country. And very interestingly, this is linked to climate change. You heard that right. Now, this might come as a surprise to some, as the impact of climate change is often thought to be distant and indirect. What's the link between the two, you might be wondering. However, in Pakistan, climate change is significantly affecting the lives of young girls. Let's tell you how. Families are marrying off their daughters in exchange for money as a desperate measure to cope with the impending floods in the country. Despite progress in reducing the rate of underage marriages in recent years, the unprecedented floods of 2022 prompted a resurgence in such marriages. It's called climate-induced economic insecurity. The summer monsoon, which is between July and September, is crucial for the livelihoods of millions of farmers. But climate change is worsening the intensity and also the duration of the monsoon, leading to increased risks of landslides, floods, and long-term crop damage. In fact, many villages in Pakistan's agricultural belt of Sindh are still reeling from the effects of the recent floods that submerged a third of the country, displacing millions and devastating the harvest. In such dire circumstances, people are resorting to desperate measures, including giving their daughters away in marriage for financial support. And as a result, Pakistan is witnessing a distressing rise in what's being called the phenomenon of monsoon brides. In fact, according to experts, since the 2022 floods, child marriage spiked in the Dadu district, one of the worst hit areas. In one village, 45 underage girls have become wives since the last monsoon. Can you imagine that? These are young children who should be in school or in playgrounds. The local residents say that before the 2022 rainfall, there was no need to get girls married off at such a young age. However, the situation changed. Parents say they are marrying off their daughters to save them from poverty. 200,000 Pakistan rupees. That's $720. That's a lot of money for people in this region, as most families survive on around $1 a day. That's the price of being born a girl. And it does not even end there. The lives of these young girls after marriage, filled with grief, they are giving birth at a very young age, and they still don't have enough to eat or feed their babies. That's because the villages are running out of clean drinking water, and many parts of the country are facing food security related issues. And as a result, young girls who should actually be attending school are being deprived of their basic right to education. Of course, not everything can be blamed on climate change. Child marriages, unfortunately, are common in parts of Pakistan, which, by the way, has the 6th highest number of girls married before the age of 18 in the world. That's according to government data published last December. And what's more, the legal age for marriage in Pakistan varies from 16 to 18 in different parts. But this law is rarely enforced in Pakistan. In fact, UNICEF says that they made significant strides in reducing child marriage in Pakistan, but evidence shows that extreme weather events are putting more girls at risk, and ultimately the rise of child brides in Pakistan is a reminder of the unequal impact of the climate crisis. It affects everyone, but it does not impact everyone equally. And that is the real tragedy. Sheikh Hasina, until recently, was Bangladesh's most powerful leader in the country's 5-decade history. She now finds herself at the possibility of extradition. As per reports, Bangladesh is contemplating asking India to extradite Bangladesh's former Prime Minister. Our next report telling you more.
At the start of this month, Sheikh Hasina resigned from her position as Prime Minister of Bangladesh and fled to India. The uprising in Bangladesh left nearly 300 people dead. In an interview, Mohammad Tawheed Hussain, the de facto Foreign Minister of Bangladesh, has said that Hasina is facing numerous cases, including serious allegations of murder. When asked about the possibility of requesting Hasina's extradition from India, Hussain was cautious but clear. He mentioned that the decision rests with the country's home and law ministries, stating that if they decide to move forward, Bangladesh will formally request her return. But this move, as Hussain pointed out, could put India in a very uncomfortable position. Sheikh Hasina's flight to India on August 5th came on the heels of a crackdown by her government, which tried to quell the protests on the ground. These protests spiraled into violence, with hundreds losing their lives. The International Crimes Tribunal in Bangladesh, a domestic court, has already opened cases against her and 10 others. In Bangladesh, the interim government, led by Muhammad Yunus, has been quick to act. Several of Hasina's former ministers and advisors have already been arrested. Among those arrested are Anisul Haq, the former law minister, and Salman F. Rahman, one of the country's leading businessmen and a close advisor to Hasina. As per reports, both men were attempting to flee the country by water when they were apprehended. Meanwhile, the Awami League Party is struggling to maintain its influence. On Thursday, efforts to commemorate the assassination of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the country's founder and Hasina's father, were met with violence. As per reports, protesters, armed with sticks, blocked the roads leading to the Bonga Bandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman Memorial Museum in Dhaka. They prevented Awami League supporters and others from gathering to mark the anniversary of his death. The interim government had cancelled the national holiday that had been instituted to honour Sheikh Mujibur Rahman. Meanwhile, the interim government has directed 7 ambassadors in the United States, Russia, Japan, Maldives, Germany, Saudi Arabia and the UAE to return to Dhaka. All of them had been appointed in their respective positions during the reign of the Awami League. On Friday, Muhammad Yunus spoke with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, assuring him that Hindus and all minorities will be protected. As per reports, there have been over 200 cases of violence against minorities in Bangladesh this month.
Will Mpox become the next pandemic? We are asking that question because the disease has reached places it was never found in before. A day after the World Health Organization, WHO, declared it as a global public health emergency, the disease has been reported in Pakistan. And before Pakistan, Sweden reported the case of Mpox. And before Sweden and Pakistan, a new variant of the disease spread from Congo to affect 13 African countries. How exactly did the disease reach Pakistan, Sweden? Did it travel through planes, ships? How many have been impacted? And how many have been tested? What measures are really being taken? And how worried should you be? Naturally, these are some of the many valid questions that come to mind. Some we have the answers for, and some we don't. Here's what we do know so far. Even though the disease has been around for decades, 2 strains of Mpox are now spreading in Congo. The endemic form of the virus, clade 1, and a new offshoot called clade 1b. The term clade refers to a form of the virus. This new offshoot, by the way, has now moved from eastern Congo to Rwanda, Uganda, Burundi, Kenya. On Thursday, Sweden reported the first case of the new form, clade 1b. It was the first case reported outside Africa. A day later, on Friday, Pakistan also confirmed a case of the Mpox virus in a patient who had returned from a Gulf country. It was unclear whether it was of the new variant or of the clade that has been spreading globally since 2022. Now, this is what we know about the patient in Pakistan, a man who returned from Saudi Arabia on the 3rd of August. He has been quarantined. His sample has been sent to the lab for confirmatory testing. The Pak authorities are reportedly on alert in view of the situation. But this has raised concern about the virus's potential to spread beyond Africa, where 14,000 cases have already been recorded. It is yet another example of how infectious diseases perceived to be someone else's problem and affecting mainly poor, developing countries may suddenly pose unexpected global threats. History is replete with other examples of diseases that were neglected and became a threat later, including the West Nile, Zika, and chikungunya viruses. In fact, experts fear that the lack of early preparedness could result in this virus becoming the next pandemic. Mpox was first discovered in 1958 in captive monkeys. Hence, the original misnomer, monkeypox. The first human case was identified in 1970. For decades, it was largely neglected by the scientific and public health communities and regarded as an uncommon infection in remote rural areas in tropical Africa, a disease in a way without relevance for the rest of the world, until it became a cause of concern. In the year 2022, a massive Mpox outbreak hit developed countries. The WHO declared it an emergency when a form of the disease began to spread globally, largely among men who have sex with men. The outbreak was brought under control after behavior change and safe sex practices. Vaccines also helped people at risk protect themselves in many countries. But the outbreak led to increased research funding as well as scientific studies. There has been more research done in the last 2 years than in the last 60 years that the disease has been around. Just to put this simply, it's only when the disease hit the developed countries did the world actually start paying attention to it. The 2022 global Mpox outbreak happened despite repeated calls from African researchers for increased global investment in studying the infection. The Mpox outbreak is yet another reminder that an infectious disease in one part of the world should not be regarded as someone else's problem. It can start to spread fast and far. Cut to 2024, the current outbreak has become Congo's worst ever. It has seen 27,000 cases and more than 1,100 deaths since January 2023. That's largely among children. For the second time, Mpox has been declared a public health emergency of international concern, which then brings us to the question, what happens now? For now, scientists hope that the emergency declarations will actually speed up efforts to get more medical tools and funding to Congo. The goal is to help the authorities in Congo tackle the outbreak. Better surveillance is also needed to study the virus and help stop the spread. In 2022, there was huge inequity in who had access to vaccine doses. African countries, even though they were worst hit, had no access to the 2 shots used in the global outbreak. 2 years later, the situation has not changed, but this time, efforts are being taken to change that. On Wednesday, the WHO said that it has appealed for dose donations from countries that have them in stockpiles. Africa's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has said that it has a plan to secure doses, but stocks are currently limited. As for how worried you should be, the answer is simple. Mpox is not COVID-19. There are tools that are proven to work to stop the spread. It does not spread as easily as COVID-19. Fatality rates also vary, depending heavily on the healthcare available to the sickest patients. In fact, in Congo, the fatality rate across both Clade 1 and Clade 1b has been around 4%. The one that has spread globally is much less deadly. The challenge now is making sure those tools reach those who need them the most. In Congo and its neighboring countries, if there is anything we can learn from the last pandemic, it is this: equitable access to tests, vaccines, and treatments needs to be given utmost importance. That requires political commitment and also financial investment. And more importantly, 2 years of COVID-19 induced pandemic taught us to not take a disease lightly. If it is devastating people in one part of the world, it can surely become a global health threat. Let's now shift our focus to the Russia-Ukraine war. Military authorities in the eastern Ukrainian town of Pokrovsk on Friday urged the civilians to speed up their evacuation. Why? Because the Russian army is quickly closing in on what has for months been one of Moscow's key targets in the war. Remember, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky had warned on Thursday that Pokrovsk and other nearby towns in the Donetsk region were facing the most intense Russian assaults. Priority supplies, everything that is needed, are being sent there. That is what Zelensky had said on the platform X. And the Pokrovsk officials earlier said in a Telegram post on Friday that Russian troops are advancing at a fast pace. With every passing day, there is less and less time to collect personal belongings and leave for safer regions. That's what they said. Now, all of this is very significant because of the timing and also the situation on the ground. Kiev's forces are trying to divert the Kremlin's military focus to Russian soil by launching that incursion across the border into the Kursk region. It's a high-stakes gamble that Ukraine is making by actually taking the war into Russia. This is an ongoing assault. In fact, scores of job ads for trench diggers and construction workers in the Kursk region have appeared online in recent days. Why trenches? As Russian forces struggle to hold back the advancing Ukrainian troops, the BBC's Russian service has reported that it found at least 30 listings for trench diggers on the classifieds website Avito, offering up to $4,000 for an unspecified period of work. In fact, the Institute for the Study of War, a U.S. think tank, on Wednesday said that satellite imagery showed that Russia is digging fortifications, including trenches and anti-vehicle defenses, around 10 miles from Ukraine's most advanced positions in Kursk. Meanwhile, Ukraine is pressing on with the Kursk incursion. Ukraine's top commander said on Thursday Kiev had set up a military commandant's office in the occupied part of Russia's Kursk region, where he said his forces were still advancing. Clearly, Kiev's forces planned to dig in after launching that cross-border assault on Russia last week. This assault, by the way, opened a whole new front in the war. It was a daring attempt to try and change the dynamics, but will that actually happen? Remains to be seen. Friends actor Matthew Perry died in October 2023 due to ketamine overdose. And on the 15th of August, 5 people were arrested and charged in connection with the actor's deaths. One of them is Jasveen Sangha, known as the ketamine queen of Los Angeles. Sangha has been accused of selling Perry the batch of ketamine that killed him. But who is Jasveen Sangha? Tonight, we tell you the story of Jasveen Sangha, who's been called the ketamine queen, and how she is involved, allegedly, in the entire Matthew Perry case. Jasveen Sangha, as per reports, is a 41-year-old dual British and American citizen. According to authorities, Sangha allegedly ran a drug operation out of her North Hollywood home, which was described as a drug-selling emporium. In fact, officials claimed that Sangha packaged and distributed various narcotics from her residence. If reports are to be believed, her house was always filled with cocaine, prescription drugs like Xanax. When the police raided her home, they found 79 bottles of liquid ketamine and nearly 2,000 meth pills, as per reports. The late Friends star obtained the fatal batch of ketamine through a broker named Eric Fleming, reportedly. Fleming sourced the drug, as per reports, from none other than the ketamine queen of Los Angeles. And according to court documents, Sangha provided Fleming with 50 vials of ketamine in 2 separate deals in the weeks leading up to Perry's deaths. She reportedly even included ketamine lollipops as a bonus as a result of the size of Matthew Perry's order. Currently out on bail, Jasveen Sangha is now one of the main people charged in the case. Al Israel Airlines' recent $2.5 billion deal with Boeing for 31 new 737 MAX aircraft has raised uncomfortable questions about wartime profiteering. As the conflict in the region continues, El Al's profits soared 2.5 times, with a 33% revenue jump in the June quarter. The timing of this deal is stark. While foreign carriers have pulled out due to regional instability, El Al is capitalizing on the vacuum, it seems. The airline's financial success, marked by a significant increase in net profits, seems to reflect a troubling trend. As the cost of the conflict goes up, so do the profits of those operating within it. And the disparity between the airline's financial windfall and the plight of ordinary people trapped amid the conflict, underscoring a broader issue: the rapid rise in flight prices and accusations of price gouging are symptomatic of a war economy that values profit over people. Reports over these pricing issues basically highlight growing concerns about exploitation in times of crisis. The international community and global powers, particularly those that contribute or benefit from such conflicts, must confront their role in this cycle. The windfall of war should not overshadow the human cost. El Al's financial success against the backdrop of ongoing suffering calls for a re-evaluation of the ethics of war economics. As the world grapples with the fallout of these conflicts, holding all responsible parties to account remains crucial. This morning, the Indian Space Agency ISRO completed the third and final development flight of the country's smallest and newest rocket, known as the Small Satellite Launch Vehicle. This rocket is one that India pins great hopes on. In our report, we tell you why the SSLV matters and how it holds great promise in the global arena.
India is a space power with end-to-end homegrown capabilities. India can build, design, launch its own rockets and satellites while also operating them. In recent decades, India has stepped up its game. India's ISRO doesn't just launch its own satellites. ISRO also launches customer satellites for a fee, just like a ride service provider. But this ride is to space. ISRO has been spending on the PSLV and GSLV Mk3, now known as LVM-3 rocket, for launching customer satellites. However, these are small rockets and can't take more than a handful of tons to space. ISRO knows that it can't compete in the league of heavy lifting, muscular rockets like America and Europe, which is why ISRO has gone for the small satellite segment. Over the years, like our phones and gadgets, satellites have become cheaper, more efficient, and much smaller. From school students to academic institutions to startups and large firms, everyone can build a small satellite today. However, not all can wait for a ride on a large rocket, which is where small rockets come in. They carry less loads but can be built and launched quickly. India's SSLV is just that. In fact, there are very few rockets in the world that operate in this segment. However, this is a fast-growing segment, with many startups emerging with small rocket offerings. As the name suggests, the small satellite launch vehicle can lift loads of only 500 kilograms and can fly only to an altitude of 500 kilometers above Earth. As far as rockets go, that is very modest. However, ISRO's SSLV is aimed at small and micro satellites, many of which can be launched in a single SSLV rocket. Larger ISRO rockets like PSLV and GSLV take more than 40 days to assemble and launch. The SSLV can be assembled and launched in less than a week. The SSLV only costs a fraction of the PSLV and GSLV. This morning, SSLV completed its third and final developmental flight. After 3 developmental flights, a rocket can be deployed for operational missions. This means the rocket's tech has been proven. It can be built in larger numbers and can be used to reliably launch customer satellites. Very soon, ISRO will transfer the entire SSLV technology to qualifying Indian private firms. Then on, the private firm can entirely build and offer SSLVs for launch. This would mean a significant scale-up in the number of SSLVs that can be churned out in a year. This also reduces the burden on ISRO and helps the Indian industry progress. In the long run, SSLV can be manufactured in large numbers and stored. As and when the need arises, the rocket can be assembled in less than a week and launched. This capability certainly has the potential to attract Indian and foreign customers who want to rapidly launch their small satellites. Globally, this is $1 billion market. Of the roughly $450 billion worth global space economy, India barely comprises 2% or $9 billion. With more offerings aimed at Indian and international customers, India hopes to grab a larger pie of the global space economy, which is expected to surpass $1 trillion in worth in a few decades. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Shifting focus for now to Thailand, Paetongtarn Shinawatra, the 37-year-old daughter of former leader Thaksin Shinawatra, has become the country's youngest ever prime minister, the third member, in fact, from the influential clan to lead the country. This comes after the country's parliament confirmed her nomination by the ruling Pheu Thai party. The ruling coalition chose Paetongtarn as Srettha Thavisin's replacement after none of the 10 other parties in the coalition put forward an alternative. Pheu Thai and its partners hold 314 seats in the parliament, and Paetongtarn needed the approval of more than half of the current 493 lawmakers to become the prime minister. The lawmakers have approved Paetongtarn as premier by 319 votes.
I decided that it's about time to do something for the country and for the party as well. And I hope that I can do my best to make the country go forward.
The 37-year-old succeeds Thavisin, who was removed from his post for appointing a cabinet minister with a criminal conviction following a constitutional court order on Wednesday. The new Thailand Prime Minister is the youngest child of Thaksin Shinawatra. She is the third member of the family after her father and aunt to hold the top job. Petong Tan helped run the hotel arm of the family's business empire. In fact, before entering politics 2 years ago, she has never held an elected office in the past. Remember, Shreta Thavisin's removal is the latest chapter in a long-running battle between the military, the pro-royalist establishment, and populist parties linked to Thaksin Shinawatra. The former Prime Minister shook the country's politics when he was elected as the Prime Minister in 2001. He spent years in exile after being removed in a military coup in 2006 and returned to Thailand only last year, on the day Pheu Thai formed the government. Time now for Gravitas Recall. Today, the 16th of August, marks 47 years since the world lost the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. On this day in 1977, Elvis Presley was just 42 years old when he died from a heart attack at his Graceland mansion in Tennessee. For many, Elvis Presley wasn't just another artist. He was the first true rock and roll superstar. With his undeniable charisma, electrifying music and striking looks, he became one of the most influential and recognizable cultural icons of the 20th century. But Elvis's impact extended beyond his own fame. His passion for artists like Little Richard and Fats Domino played a crucial role in bringing back rock and roll to the forefront, helping these artists gain acceptance among white audiences. He's had 10 chart-topping albums on the Billboard 200 and 18 #1 singles on the Hot 100. Even after his passing, Elvis's influence lives on, with various successful posthumous albums, compilations, and rarities continuing to captivate audiences around the world. And as we remember Elvis Presley today, it's clear his music and influence will continue to shape generations to come. On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas Tonight. This is me, Molly Complete, signing off. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good weekend.
Massive turning point in the West Asia conflict. Israel opens Iran war front. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh killed in Tehran, a targeted attack during a visit to Iran for the new president's inauguration. Nearly 2,000 kilometers away in Beirut, Israel kills a top Hezbollah commander in a targeted strike. West Asia on the boil, war clouds darken, and the threat of a wider conflict grows bigger than ever.
This week on Inside South Asia, normalcy restores to Bangladesh, but at what cost? Can interim leader Muhammad Yunus safeguard the rights of minorities? 3 years since the Taliban takeover, the Taliban iron fist prevails, human rights denominators at an all-time low. And three-time Grammy Award winner Ricky Kedge creates a unique world record on India's Independence Day. All this and much more on Inside South Asia.
This week on the West Asia Post. The threat of a wider war in West Asia triggers high-stakes talks in Doha. Biden expects attack by Iran and its proxies can be delayed if there's a hostage deal. As international mediators push for a ceasefire, Hamas says it is losing faith in the US's role as a negotiator. Also on the show, detained Palestinian narrates harrowing ordeal faced inside Israeli army base. And Hezbollah IDF cross-border fire continues. Catch the West Asia Post at these times only on WION World is One.
This week on Tech It Out, our focus is on computer chips in human brains. We show you how countries are using robo-dogs in wars and high-risk missions. And we tell you about a new material that can turn regular objects into solar panels. This and more on WION World is One at these times.
Know more, understand better, think ahead. Hello and a very warm welcome. You are watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Get the facts, not the bombast. On the 26th of March, dynamic pricing, Baloch separatists, Gravitas cuts out the clutter. Gravitas keeps calm when others scream. Gravitas brings news to life. Weekdays 9 p.m. IST, 3:30 p.m. GMT. Gravitas,
seeing is believing.
Massive turning point in the West Asia conflict. Israel opens Iran war front. Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh killed in Tehran, a targeted attack during a visit to Iran for the new president's inauguration. Nearly 2,000 kilometers away in Beirut, Israel kills a top Hezbollah commander in a targeted strike. West Asia on the boil, war clouds darken, and the threat of a wider conflict grows bigger than ever.